And I think when we look at these, and we're going to look at them here in a little bit, well, let me go ahead and do that. So you can see the next page is where I've actually described all of these, right? So let's look at the different actors in this story to see what their potential conflicts are. So what do they want? So the British Empire here, it wants profit, it wants control, it wants to export its cultural and social values to civilize a place that it considers uncivilized, right? That's an aspect of imperialism, right? Imperialism is a policy where one country goes out and conquers other countries to spread its values, its traditions, but also it does so in a way to usually benefit, right? Sometimes countries go to war against other countries because they need resources, right? All of my rivers have dried up and the neighbor next to me has a lot of water. I need that water, so I'm just going to go and I'm going to take it, right? That's one kind of imperialism, when you're adding to your kingdom in order to get resources that you need to continue to survive and grow, right? So that's kind of profit. Another reason that you might choose imperialism, or once you're in an imperialistic situation, control is very important, because a lot of these people don't want you there. You have forced yourself in there. So you have to maintain a rigid kind of control, because they're always looking for ways to get at you, right? And then again, this idea of culture and social values, this kind of superiority, and we definitely see this in this story, that British culture is superior, and it's our job to save these pagans from their heathen ways. It's our job to go in there and take over this country so we can use it the way it needs to be used, because we are superior in our technology and our understanding, and these people are just, letting things go to waste, right? America certainly had that kind of thinking when it overtook or took over a lot of indigenous lands when it came here. If you read the Indian Removal Act, one of the justifications that President Jackson made for that, I'm sorry, President Johnson, no, it's President Jackson, was that Native Americans just didn't develop the land fully. And so whites needed to take over, because we would, get much more out of the land than they did, right? Sometimes that cultural social value looks at the others as children who need to be guided. They're endangering themselves and others because they just don't know, right? So those are some of the things that the British Empire, their conflicts in this story. How do they get that, right? For the Burmese, the people who are conquered in this story, their long-term goal is independence, right? They want to be free. They want their country back. Short-term goal, we have the elephant's death in this, and we'll talk about that when we get to the story. They want this rogue elephant taken care of. And the narrator gives them many motivations for that: entertainment, the food, right? Maybe some kind of revenge for the destruction that it's caused. Right. And so now let's look at the narrator. So we're going to look at first his internal conflict. You're going to see that one of the things that he wants is he wants acceptance. He wants to be liked by his own people and the Burmese. He talks about that quite a lot. One of the first things he tells us is that he was never more hated than he was when he was in Moulmein, right? He wants to avoid looking like a fool. That's the last thing he tells us, though he does indicate that other times. But the last thing he says is, I didn't want to look like a fool, right? And he basically tells us that this is what all Englishmen's ultimate motivation in the East is, to somehow maintain their dignity, right? He wants to hold out in this job until he can return home. He hates it. He says he can't even express fully how much he despised this job that he had, and his whole purpose was just to get out as soon as possible, right? He does have conflict with his own inherent prejudices about the people. You're going to see directly and indirectly, he makes a lot of statements, or he does a lot of things that shows that he does have these prejudices, right? He has a disgust with imperialism. So he's working for his own government, and yet he says that it is evil, this imperialism. So that's a big conflict, right? That he doesn't like what he's having to do. He has sympathy for the Burmese, but that's a conflict because they don't treat him any differently than they do any officer, and he kind of takes umbrage at that. He's like, why are they making me an enemy? I feel for them, right? And then he has this great fear that he's just becoming a mask, that he's losing a sense of who he is to, in order to do his duty and be the the representative of Great Britain that he's supposed to, he has to fit this mask that he's been given of this is what it means to be a British officer. And he kind of doesn't know who he is anymore, right? So these are his internal conflicts.